Good day, as you know I am Kaylin and today we're going to be discussing rounding. I'm going to explain to you and actually show you how the rounding works. So we're going to use 15-minute rounding periods. Now basically there's two different types of rounding that we're going to do here, where you can either then round the actual clockings to a, let's say, a 15 or 30-minute rounding period or whatever that may be for you. And then also you can round the payroll hours. So at the end of your pay period, you can, if you've got 40 hours and 12 minutes, you can round that to 40 hours and 15 minutes, depending on what your rounding interval is that you're using there. So I'm going to actually show you, if we just move on over to our configuration module. Once again, we're making shift changes, so please make sure that your server is not running when you're doing that. I'm going to just show you that where to find these rounding settings, and there is no rounding settings currently on the shifts. And what is going to happen when we change, and add that in and change different things there. So you'll see that we're going to be working with this daily shift here. So this rounding that we're going to be setting here now is the one that's going to apply to your clockings. So in other words, it's going to take a 10 past 7 clocking and it's going to change it to 7:15. And then obviously work the hours out according to that. So yes, in your daily shifts, if you just look next to your time slots, you'll see that there's a rounding section here. So the first thing that you've got here is your length. That is going to be the rounding interval, which could then be, let's say 15 minutes, which is going to be our case. It can be 30 minutes, it can be to the nearest hour, it can be to the nearest 10 minutes, nearest 5 minutes, whatever your requirement is in terms of what those clockings need to be rounded to the nearest interval. You can specify that here. You've got then your in and you've got your out as well. So this is where your split is going to be. 7 minutes before, 7 minutes after, 8 minutes. Usually, let's say we've got a 15-minute rounding, which is what we're going to do now. You've got a split of 7 and 8, which means that anything up until 8 minutes, within that time. So let's say it's 7:30. Anything up till 7:37 is going to round back to 7:30, and anything after 7:37, in other words 7:38 and onwards, is going to round up to 7:45. So I'm going to show you how this works. So we've got no rounding enabled there. I'm just going to show you in the user module. We're going to work with this user. Let's go to daily hours. You'll see that here we've got a clocking of 7:42, and then obviously it's clocked out at 10 past 10 as well. There's absolutely no rounding applied to this. If I just process this, you'll see nothing will happen. Just to show you what the physical clockings are there again. None of those clockings are actually rounded. That is the actual times, and obviously then it's working out to the minute. So yeah, this guy is 18 minutes earlier. It's going to give him 18 minutes in excess, because that's how I've got my shifts configured there, and 10 minutes in our hold 1.5 category. Okay, so obviously yours might vary according to your shift configuration where those hours are actually allocated there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in a 15-minute rounding. So let's go back to our configuration module. Select the shift that this guy is on. Now I already know which shift that is on. You need to obviously just determine which daily shift you need to set, and how that is done is if you go and look at what shift this employee is allocated to in terms of payroll. Go to your payroll shifts, check on O1 and see which day shift is used for that particular day. Okay, so we got our daily shift here. We're going to add in, what I'm going to do is I want to only round the clockings between let's say between 7:30 and 8. You can obviously apply rounding to your 7 to 5 and also after 7 to 5 as well. So let's go and say 7:30 to 8. I'm going to put in 15 minutes. We're going to make the split 7 and 8, and I'm actually going to go and add this in to all the other ones. 15. Now this is a buffer zone that's been added here. So this is now also, if you wanted to not only split 7, 8, but you can split it that the first 15 minutes doesn't get any overtime there. You can actually go and make that rounding length 15, and you can actually set this to 15, which what'll happen now is any clockings between 5 o'clock and 5:15 will actually round back to 5 o'clock there. So if you need to add in a buffer zone, we call it a buffer zone. That's basically when they need to work a minimum amount of time before overtime, is earned. You can put that in, and then let's just do that. You obviously don't have to put it on each time slot. You can, like anything before 7:30, you're not too stressed about that. You can leave that to the minute. So depending on what your requirements are, you can go and specify those things. So let's save that, close the screen, and let's go back to our user module. So now let's take a look what happens when we process our clocking. You'll see immediately now it's changed that clocking to the nearest 15 minutes. So because we've got 15 minutes there. Remember we had a split of 7 and 8, which means that anything up till 37 minutes past 7 will round back, and anything after that will obviously round up to quarter past. Then we had a clocking of 7:42, which means that it's going to round up there. Same thing with this, we had a buffer zone in there which we put off 15 minutes, so this guy clocked out at 10 past 5, so it'll round it back to 5 o'clock there. So if we go and take a look at the clockings, you'll see it still shows the physical clockings in the unrounded totals there, so you can just see how they clocked in, if it's actually rounding correctly as you want that to happen. Same thing here, if we're going to go and round this, let's see, I don't think I actually added in rounding afterwards. To just round that clocking of the 17:23 there. Let's just see if we've got in. Yeah, this should also go back to 5 o'clock there. Now the only thing is, I think this is actually a different shift if I'm not mistaken. So let's just take a squiz there. Yes, so that would be 02. I only said 01, so that would be why that rounding is actually not being applied there. Okay, so I'm not going to stress too much about that. You can go and set all those settings in there. Just make sure that all daily shifts are then set, that you don't get this scenario here. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes here. You'll see automatically then my excess is now no longer 18 minutes. It's now also 15 minutes because of that clocking that's been rounded, and there's obviously no overtime hold. So that's physically rounding the clocking. So that's your rounding rules in the daily hours. Now if I just go and remove this, because what I want to do is I want to show you if you go and add in rounding in the payroll screen, you can actually round the hours and not the clockings. So the clockings will stay the same. He'll earn to the minute clockings, hours, but we're going to add that in the payroll section. So I'm just going to go do this. Let's process this again and process that back. So we've got actual clockings now again. So then again we've got 18 minutes in excess there. We've got 10 minutes in overtime. Here's another 23 minutes in the overtime that's been authorized there. Okay, so let's go back to our configuration module. Now this time we're going to go around hours, as I said. So we're going to go to the payroll hours, payroll shift screen, sorry, and we're going to set the rounding rules there. Depending on how many rates you've got set up in your shifts, you might only have the normal rate or a rate. If you've got multiple rates, you would need to go and set the rounding length for each of those. So in this case now what I want to do is I want to go and set the rounding, let's say also going to be 15 minutes. My break is also going to be at 7, and I'm not going to stress too much about the second rate because I don't have any of those configured now, and I actually think I want the excess as well, that I can just show you what happens there. Okay, so I'm going to just set all the normal rates. Let's see, 15 and 7, 15 and 7, there you go. So what's going to happen now is you'll see now I'm going to leave the hold one off. We're not going to add rounding in there, just so that you can see what's happening. Let's move on over to our user module again, and let's go and take a look here. So we had 18 in excess. Oh wait, sorry, another thing now, you're not rounding hours in daily hours, you're rounding in payroll hours. So what we need to do is go back to our payroll hours screen, take a look at what our excess is there, what our overtime is there, and then also you can see your hold there. We didn't have any rounding on the hold category, but let's process this and we'll see that that'll round now to the nearest 15 minutes now. So yes, so you can either then, like I say, on a daily basis, how that's going to happen is by rounding your actual physical clockings, or then on a payroll basis, which will obviously round then the total amount of hours for that pay period. If you go and just take a look, so let's go and look at the breakdown for this. You've got each day, which is still to the minute. It's not going to affect any of that. If you go and look at your clockings, it's not going to affect any of your clockings either. You can obviously view it there as well. So yes, the parallel rounding is at the end of your pay period, and those are the two different types of rounding that you can apply in CS time. So depending on what your company's setup is, if you allow this guy to make up some time during the week, let's say he works short on the Wednesday, but the Thursday he now goes and works a bit extra, and now only you want to go around, after that whole week, you want to go around his hours then to the nearest 15 or 30 minutes, you can do that then. Obviously, let's say this guy worked, let's say he worked 7 hours and 53 minutes is what he worked on this day. If you've got a 15-minute rounding, it's going to round it down to, okay, that's actually quite late, so it's actually going to round it up. So if you've got, let's say what, you're going to have 50. So you're going to have 7 hours 50, it's going to round it down to 7 hours 45, which means he's going to lose 5 minutes there. You're going to basically throw 5 minutes away. Where this year perhaps he might have worked then, an extra 5 minutes to make up that time. So you can round it then at the end of the pay period. And that's how easy rounding is. I always say it's easiest for you to, go and add in, just like we're doing here, add in your rounding settings, in either daily then or payroll settings here, and then go and reprocess it in the daily, in your user module, in order for you to see how that affects it. So you'll see sometimes, let's say you go and add in 15 minutes rounding and you've got a 5 and a 10 split. Let's just see, let's make that 10. Let's go and see how that is going to affect it, and if that's the result that you actually want. So let's go and take a look there. It's going to round that to 7:45 because we've got 15 minutes there. Now thinking that our clocking is 7:42, then I would say that that is pretty accurate. That's what we want there. And then you can also swap that around and just see how that affects your hours. And that's rounding. So play around with it a little bit, see if it's the result that you want, and if not, just swap it around and see how that works then. At least there's not something that you can actually break. You can always change that back to 0. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.